give you a break.
So still pass?
Yes, you'll be okay.
You'll make it an easy final?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
totally.
How do I learn how to teach when I teach business school? I used to think there was one class I took. I was just finishing up my term paper. I had to study for the final. I had a very bad cold.
Mm.
Had fever about 99. Well, of course, you have to be 99. I went down there. The guy showed me Picasso, as I shake his hand. Excuse me, take a paper. He says you're here already?
Wow.
Okay, fine. Yes, I think if that was my first or second year, I would have been happy. It was near the end, so I had to show. But I think it was really unfair.
Yep, I agree.
Oh well. I wonder if I died if I could have sued him.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Yeah. Buenos dias. So my plan this morning is to finish the last little bit from Canada, and then I'm going to turn the mic over to Cecil for a few minutes so that he can talk to us about his experience growing up in Cuba, and then we'll talk about the information that I have to tell you about Cuba. Cecil, vas a enseñar la clase esta mañana. No hay problema. Okay, so we left off last week. It's better now, a little bit, a tiny bit, yeah. It's not blowing as hard. So, it doesn't matter. The vents are all over the place. Or maybe it's because I'm having coffee. Okay, so we left off last week with the St. Louis, if you will recall. So in 1939, Canada turns away the St. Louis, which had 908 Jews from Europe on it, and those Jews were sent back to Europe, and most of them were placed in concentration camps and died. Oh. Ship of Fools? Mm-hmm. So, after the Holocaust, Canada admitted more Jewish refugees, and communities expanded all throughout Canada. And Jews became very active in business, academics, politics, the arts. So Jews did very well after the Holocaust. Montreal at that time remained the major center, but Toronto eventually overtook it as the major Jewish center in Canada. And that was due partially to Quebec's politics during the 1970s. So you know Quebec wanted to secede, right? And say again? Free Quebec, yes. Sorry. That's okay, that's okay, that's okay.
Didn't de Gaulle encourage that?
Well, France wanted it for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so today, Canada has one of the largest Jewish populations, Jewish communities in the world. As of the 2021 census, there are 335,000 Canadians who identified as Jews, and other estimates place it actually closer to 400,000, because you know some people either are reluctant or they just don't identify or whatever, but the idea is probably closer to 400,000. Yeah, I don't think I have that number. I don't have it. But I know that, so for instance, Ontario now has about 275,000 Jews. Quebec has 125,000. British Columbia closer to 62,000, and Alberta 20,000. Of those numbers, 26% identify as conservative Jews, 17% identify as Orthodox Jews, 16% identify as Reform, and 29% identify as I'm Jewish. And I don't identify in a particular movement of any kind. I'm Jewish.
The population of Canada as of 2025 is approximately 21.7 million.
So we want then, what do we want? 400,000 divided by, right? Isn't that what we want? What is it, the population? 41 million. So let's say it's 40 million. 1/10? Say again?
400,000 Jews are in Canada.
Right. But I'm just trying to say, in terms of figuring out the percentage, if we take the smaller number and divide it by the larger number, that'll give us the percentage, right?
It's about 1.2%.
1%? Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, from Quebec. 125,000, and 90% of them are there in Montreal. Yeah, they are almost all in Montreal, within Quebec. And so Canadian Jews are predominantly Ashkenazi. There are small communities of Sephardic and Mizrahi. All right. Zisol. You know, I didn't talk about the anti-Semitism present day, but you know, I just saw another article on Yahoo this morning, and where was that? This one was in London, and it's just everywhere. Everywhere. Oh, I didn't see that. This was talking about, in general, he said London is becoming a very dangerous place for Jews to live. He said, and the purpose of the article was to say New York now is the safest place in the world for Jews to live. That was his comment. From London. You just read that from England, that there were 1,200 Jews looking to make Aliyah. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Yes.
Because they let all Muslims in, in fact, it should be a law, places you can't go. So now there's something.
So, because, so when we should be careful. Yes. So we don't have Sharia law in the United States. We don't, and other places don't have Sharia law. Some communities are allowed to practice aspects of Sharia law in the same way that some Orthodox Jewish communities are allowed to practice Jewish law. Okay, this is, and so we can't I don't want to demonize Muslims because that's a bad thing to do. Yeah, but certainly extremist Islam is very dangerous, but also extremist Judaism is dangerous. What we have with the settlers on the West Bank right now is very, very concerning and very problematic. So all I want to say is we shouldn't set ourselves up as angels, and we shouldn't demonize all Muslims. There are definitely problems within certain aspects of Islam. No question at all. But just as it was like in the Middle Ages, we were allowed to form what were called kehilot, Jewish communities, and we had a fair amount of autonomy within those Jewish communities. The Batei Din of those communities could decide who can marry, who cannot marry, whether food is kosher, rules for Shabbat, et cetera, et cetera. And so we don't have Sharia law in the United States, and they don't have Sharia law in general in London. There are pockets where Muslim communities are allowed to practice aspects of their religion in the same way that we can do the same thing.
Two comments. One, let me start with the settler violence, because I just have one.
Here, come. I can feel Susie's eyes, even though I can't see her.
Okay, just two comments. The quicker comment is about settler violence. I recently heard that even if there's a car accident and somebody involving an Israeli Jew and an Arab is involved, that's considered settler violence. So, although that type of violence, like the Meir Kahane type of violence and the Ben Gvir, all of that is abhorrent, when you hear stories about the horrible settler violence, the numbers might not be as much as we think, because everything is included in that umbrella. So my larger comment is about, there's also Amish in this country that have little conclaves, and the Mormons and everything else. But I will say that there's a big difference between the Amish, the Jews, and the Muslims. The difference is that Jews don't proselytize, and the Amish don't try to gather people into their communities and spread it out to the rest of the world. Untrue about Muslims. They want the entire world to be under Sharia law. So there's a, I'm sorry? Oh, that's that's the point that I'm making. And it's very obvious. You're shaking your head. I'm sorry. I took over.
Just tell me and I'll repeat it. About a month ago, I was watching CNN, and a GOP congresswoman, Stefanik, yes. She wrote a book. And she talks about the universities that did not protect Jews.
She's rather amazing. I mean, she was asked, well, do you support Trump? This was after he made himself Jesus.
Yes.
And, you know, kind of,
Okay, but we have to be careful with politics, Evie. Please.
kind of floated over that. But she did say that the mayor of New York, Mondami, is an anti-Semite. And then on his staff,
Okay, we got to be careful with politics, please. I said the comment from this man in London was that that New York is the safest place for Jews right now.
I just think it's amazing that the person that I absolutely despise protected Jews, and that was Donald Trump.
Okay. Okay, so yes. Yes, going back to extremism, Rabin was killed by a Jewish extremist, yes. So look, let me just end with this so that we can get to Zisel and get to Cuba. There is a medieval doctrine in Islam, and it explains a number of things. It divides the world into two orders. And Dar al-Islam, the lands that are governed by Islam, and Dar al-Harb, the lands of war. And this is a medieval doctrine which says if a land has been conquered by Islam, then it needs to be returned to Islam. And that the rest of the world is looked at as places to come under Islamic law. It's medieval. It explains Osama bin Laden, and it explains other hardline extremists. But it doesn't extend to moderate Muslims. What I want to say is my opinion. You may, and I will argue your right to disagree with me all day long. My opinion, there are billions of Muslims in the world. If they were all problematic and all extremist, all of us would be dead by now. Absolutely. There are billions of Muslims who want nothing else than to watch their children grow up, become educated, have a good life, and give them grandchildren. They just want a peaceful life, and they want the ability to worship their concept of God in the way that they do. So there are also very problematic elements within Islam. Very. We know that. That's not a secret. But as I said, I think the settlers represent one example from our tradition. That's a real problem. They are violent, they are aggressive, and really they're awful. They're awful, and they give us a very bad name. Why doesn't the government stop it? Look, I have my own problems with Netanyahu and the government, and all I want to say is, Zionism. I think this is Mark's opinion only, not I'm not speaking for Judaism. This is my opinion only. At its inception, Zionism meant the desire for Jews to have a homeland. We have a homeland. Zionism means something else now. So when people say they are against Zionism, it doesn't mean I am anti-Semitic and against Jews. It just doesn't. What it means is that Zionism now has come to mean, in my opinion, the expansion of Israel into other territory. And so when you say I am anti-Zionist, it means I am against Israel going out and trying to get new territory that it should not have under international law. It doesn't mean I hate Jews. I don't agree with everything that Netanyahu has decided for Israel, or the government has decided, or the IDF has decided. That doesn't make me anti-Jewish at all. God forbid. Somebody bite your tongue who wants to say that. What it makes me is, I don't agree with Netanyahu. I don't agree that this is the best course of action for Israel, and it's problematic. That's all it means. Lydia. Yes, I agree. Yes?
Because I feel that because of Arab and Muslim
Because of Arab and Muslim settlements,
that the state of Israel
that the state of Israel
is under constant
is under constant
fear
fear
by its surrounding enemies.
by its enemies that surround it.
That's right.
And therefore,
That the Israeli government
and Israelis
get buffer zones
are trying to get buffer zones
to try and protect themselves.
are to try to protect themselves.
Everybody surrounding them wants them to die and
Because everybody surrounding them wants to die.
wants them to die and drown in the sea.
I don't disagree with your analysis, and I certainly respect your opinion to disagree with me. You're right to disagree with me. It's the method by which it's being accomplished that I have problems with. But you are not at all wrong in what you are saying. Okay, let's do one more, and then I got to get Zisel up here to talk about Cuba, and then you can say what you want to do about this. On a positive note,
Not everyone of the neighbors are opposed to Israel. The United Arab Emirates is
the UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, there's a whole host of countries because of the Abraham Accords, and their opposition to Iran unites the enemies against the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But even before that, Israel has technology. Yes, of course. Of course. Of course. Good. Hezbollah said yesterday, we will never give up, we will never stop fighting, we will never put the arms down. And I'm like, you people are dumb. Lebanon could be such a beautiful place if you trade technologies with Israel. Lebanon, from my understanding, way, way, way back, was gorgeous. It was the Paris of the Middle East. That's what I'm told. And it could be again if people would understand, make peace with Israel and trade technology. And okay, Ken, quick. Yes. Hitler what? He wanted room to live. Yes. Yes. Expansion. Yes. Okay, Zisel, come. Tell us about Cuba. So for those of you who are looking up here, we're going to be talking a fair amount about Havana. And so that's where Havana is, right at the northwest tip in Cuba.
You have the marker? I just want to put, oh, thank you.
By the way, tomato in Lebanon
big X,
big X.
so that people can see it. There.
Is that big enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Déjame hacerlo. Está bien. Okay. Okay, señor. Adelante.
Why I am talking about Cuba? Because I was born there. Because I went through the school system there. I know the history of Cuba. And, okay, thank you very much. Ernest, my good friend. I left Cuba in 1957, right after I graduated from high school. So my personal experience in Cuba ends in 1957. All I know after 57 about Cuba is what I either heard from my friends or saw in the papers, TV, internet, etc., etc. So I don't know. You want me to talk about the history of Cuba or my experience in Cuba?
Your experience
Okay.
in Cuba as a little boy.
Okay, until the age of 18, yes. First of all, there was no discrimination in Cuba. Even before World War II, there were Cuban sympathizers with Hitler, but that was a minority position, and they really it really did not affect the Jews living in Cuba at all. There was one, I'm just gonna digress a little bit, there was one very intelligent young lady, Jewish, Anna Taranovsky, who was getting A's everywhere ever since elementary school. And she got to the University of Havana and she went to study medicine. And there was a professor of medicine, one of the different subjects that were taught, that was an avowed anti-Semite. He was a Nazi. He said it very proudly. That's when Nazism was in its apogee. And the big question throughout the students' body was, what is going, now the courses for medicine were pretty established, they were electives. So there was eventually, Anna Taranovsky, who was a medical student, had to take the class with this anti-Semitic professor. Anna Taranovsky had very smart, so she had A's throughout, and everybody was waiting the big battle. And Anna Taranovsky got her A. One friend of Hannah, no friend, a friend, come to the professor and says, "Professor, do you know that Anna Taranovsky is Jewish?" She says, "Yeah, I know, but she was the best damn student I ever had, and she got her A, so move on." That was an anti-Semite, an avowed anti-Semite. So, you know, it's the Cuban psyche and the way of life is, if you were a nice guy, you get along with anything. If you were not a nice guy, you were let know that you were not a nice guy and nobody wanted to do anything with you. The Jews in Cuba were divided into distinct camps. Los polacos y los turcos. That means polacos is everybody who came from Europe. No matter whether they came from, Polaco means a Polish person. That's what it means. And all the Ashkenazim were Polacos. It don't matter where they came from. My parents came from Belarus. They were still Polacos. The Sephardim, the overwhelming majority of Sephardim in Cuba came from Turkey. They were from Syria and other places, but Turkey was the majority of the Sephardim. And no matter where you came from, you could have come from Iraq. You were still a Turco because we were either Polacos or Turcos, regardless of where we came from. And there was no discrimination at all. I grew up in the little legs with a round circle around it, in about 200 miles from Havana. The majority of the Jews, regardless of Ashkenazim or Sephardim, the majority lived in Havana, and there were a number of Jews, I don't know the number exactly, that would throughout the island, and I was one of those throughout. Didn't grow up in Cuba, did not grow up in a Jewish community. Well, that's not true. Very small, very, very tiny Jewish community, mostly Sephardim. That's why I like to tell everybody that I'm Ashkefardi, because going to shul, I went through the Sephardi synagogue, and that was my background. So I'm Ashkefardi. I encountered no anti-Semitism whatsoever. Throughout all my school years in Cuba, I was El Polaco, because, like I say, all Ashkenazim were Polacos, no matter where they came from. And my parents came from Belarus, and they were Polacos, means from Poland. And in my high school, if you said El Polaco, then everybody knew who he was. It was me. And in fact, there was a history teacher teaching about ancient history, and she talked about Israel and all that, or one of the students there from my town said, his name was Israel, as a matter of fact, his first name, he says, I would like to meet an Israeli. Israelite, I'm sorry, not Israeli. Israeli is one thing, and Israelite. So I'd like to meet an Israelite. So the teacher says, you know El Polaco? He said, sure. Well, that's an Israelite. They got your example. And I was just another guy.
So basically, there was no discrimination. Did you have any Jewish friends? Yes and no, but not too many. Different ages. Okay. So, yes. When did Ziesel's parents get to Cuba? Father in the 20s. We're going to talk about that. Mother came. So slightly later, around that time, same time? Early 30s. And where was your father from? Where? Belarus. Okay. And where was your mom from? Ukraine. Okay, so both Eastern Europe. Okay. Was there a synagogue in your town, Ziesel?
Yes.
Yes. It was Sephardic. Do you remember the name of the synagogue? No? Okay. No, but the name, like a dot Ariel or something like that. Okay, only because I have the names of the existing synagogues, so. Okay. Why did you leave Cuba? He left Cuba because I didn't like the government. It was dictatorial. Sure, this is Batista. And the revolution comes in 59 when Castro takes over. Right. '56, he was detained. He was demonstrating against the government and was detained. Okay.
We went to Cuba on a Jewish mission and found no anti-Semitism at all. And in 1999, Castro spent a couple, 3 hours in a synagogue for a Hanukkah celebration because he was impressed with the Maccabees. What he's trying to do, he was impressed with the Maccabees. And when he was asked about Israel, and this is 2010, while speaking to a journalist, he announced that he believed Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state and denounced Holocaust deniers. He also expressed concern about regards to Iran's nuclear ambition.
Thank you. The 2000. Yes, Zisel. One time Castro was invited to a Hanukkah celebration. And he always came late to wherever he went. And he came in and he made a speech. In the speech, he said, the Torah is a great social document. It is a great social document. What? He said that he was reminded of an incident where Castro came to a Hanukkah celebration and made a speech, and in the speech he said the Torah was a great social document. Okay, yes, Lydia.
So finally, in 2000 and I don't know if it was 17 or 18, we went to Cuba. And that was the first time Zisel was back. And we went with a Jewish mission. It was called High Missions. It was, it was actually from all over the United States. It just wasn't LA, but there was a large contingency from the United States. I mean, from Los Angeles. And so when we got there, you know, we saw the different Jewish communities, etc. And, pardon me? I think it was 2016 or 17, something like that. 18, okay. So anyway, one of the very interesting things that they did special for him, because he was the only one who was on the tour from Cuba, they made a stop in his hometown, special for him. And so we went to the place that he was born and the place where he grew up. And the interesting thing was that the place he was born is now a beauty salon. And so he went inside, and I mean, you know how effervescent he is. So he went inside and he, you know, talked to the women, and when they told him that, when he told them that I was born in this house, they were so excited, they started dancing with him. And of course, he loves to dance, so he was having the best time. And then just one more thing, so across the street was the place where he grew up after that first location, and it's now a post office. And they allowed us to go in and look at it, even though it's a post office, and you know you're not supposed to, really, because it's a government thing. But, pardon me? No, they didn't dance. No, but it was very interesting because you know we saw, you know, where he grew up as a little boy, and they were so friendly and so nice. It was just the best experience.
Thank you, thank you. Cecil, that must have been a very emotional trip after all those years. Brought back a lot of memories. Okay, so the earliest presence in Cuba goes back to 1492, and Christopher Columbus, his first expedition, on which Luis de Torres was a translator and an interpreter, and many people consider him to be the very first Jew in the Americas. Now, let's, for 1 second, just talk about Christopher Columbus, because there's always the question, was he Jewish? Was he not Jewish? Well, I have a little bit of very current information which doesn't settle the question, but it points us in a direction. So in 2024, they dug up Columbus, his remains, and they did DNA analysis, and the DNA analysis suggests that there was Jewish blood on his mother's side. It is not a complete DNA analysis, it's a partial DNA analysis that they could get. It suggests maternal Jewish Sephardic DNA from Spain. There are those on the other, scientists on the other side who say no, it does not. And the scientists who agree with it say, look, it's only partial, but it couldn't be anything else. If we have that, if we have a partial DNA, it can't be something else. So it is not conclusive, but there is a good likelihood that Columbus had some Jewish lineage from Spain, and he probably hid it, obviously, during the Inquisition. Yes, Cecil. According to what you were taught in Cuban history, the financing of his expedition came from Ferdinand and Isabella. However, a large portion came from private sources. That's what and what you think is that those private sources were the Marranos, the conversos. Right. Yes. So that conversos could be free in the Americas. Okay. So Luis de Torres comes over with Columbus. He's a translator. During the 16th and the 17th centuries, the 1500s and the 1600s, many Jews fleeing the Portuguese controlled Brazil. So you know there was a large colony in Recife, Brazil. But the Inquisition spread to Brazil because it was a Portuguese colony at the time. They went to Cuba and settled in Cuba. And they engaged in international trade. They tried to connect Cuba with trade in Amsterdam and Hamburg. But there were occasional problems with the Inquisition, which kept trying to look at various places where Jews might be and might be hiding. The Jews who came to Cuba in the beginning, many of them assimilated. And so there wasn't a large continuity of them with later Jewish populations and communities. Starting in the 1800s, after the Spanish-American War, after 1898, late 1800s, Cuba became closely tied to the United States. And American Jewish businessmen and war veterans went to Cuba and they settled on the island and they worked in import-exports. They dealt with sugar and tobacco, and they founded what was called the Union Hebrew Congregation in 1904. That was the first, synagogue, 1904, the Union Hebrew Congregation. And then they established a cemetery in 1906. As you know, when Jews settle an area, the first thing they do is establish a cemetery because they want to be separate. They want to keep things separate. Right. What denomination was the United Hebrew Congregation? The vast majority of Jews coming to Cuba were Ashkenazim. In the very, very beginning, you had the Sephardim fleeing from that, but that was way back in 1492. We're talking now 1904. Apparently not. Apparently there wasn't enough of a congregation in those early days to establish. And so now when they have the United Hebrew Congregation in 1904, you finally had a community that was large enough to have a synagogue and a cemetery. In the early days, they were probably under the Inquisition, and you wouldn't want to publicize it. Absolutely, absolutely. So at the same time, 1904, we're talking about, you had Sephardic Jews from the Ottoman Empire. So so remember, Zisa was just telling us Jews were divided into two groups: those from Eastern Europe and those from Turkey. And Jews from the Ottoman Empire, especially Turkey, arrived, and they formed a synagogue called Union Hebrea Shevet Achim, which is still there today. We're going to talk about it in a little bit. In 1914, those Jews from Turkey came and became mostly peddlers and small merchants. Between 1910, yes, Cecil. The Jews who came from Turkey, as opposed to the Jews who came from Europe, they spoke Ladino. From Ladino to Spanish is easy. The Sephardim, especially from Turkey, were well equipped to integrate into society. They spoke Ladino. Yes, thank you, thank you. So between 1910 and 1924, thousands of Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews immigrated to Cuba. So remember, we're thinking history. 1910, 1924, same thing here in the United States. Huge immigration to the United States. Why? Pogroms following the assassination of Tsar Alexander II in 1881, which was blamed on Jews, but Jews had nothing to do with it. But many used the island as like a transit point. They wanted to come to the United States, so they went to Cuba first, and then they, yes, Cecil.
They did so because there was a rumor, not true, but one of those rumors throughout Europe, especially, that if you spend 6 months in Cuba, you can come to the States.
But if you spent 6 months in Cuba, you could come to the United States. It was a rumor, but a lot of people came because of it. Right, and this was all up until 1924, because everything changes in terms of immigration in 1920. Oh gosh, how can it's already time for your break. Okay, let me just say this part. Okay, just it goes so fast. We're having, I mean, it's so interesting. Everybody has such interesting information. It's just okay. 1924, immigration to the United States is severely curtailed by what was called the Johnson-Reed Immigration Act of 1924. It was originally intended for like Southeast Asia, but it included Jews, and which is why Jewish immigration to the United States was severely, I think it was down to 10,000 people a year, severely curtailed starting in 1924. And that stayed all the way through the Holocaust. And then in 1939, Great Britain enacted the White Papers, which severely curtailed immigration. And therefore, when the Holocaust begins, at 1939, you'll remember, is just after Kristallnacht. So Jews are desperately trying to leave, because up until Kristallnacht, Jews had thought, well, it'll get better eventually. It's going to be okay. We'll get through it. You know, it'll be fine. And then Kristallnacht happened, and all of a sudden everybody woke up and said, oh my God, we're not going to be fine. This is bad. And by then it was too late. They were trapped. There was no place to go because immigration was closed it. Okay. Cecil, thank you for all of the wonderful information today. We appreciate it. It's always best when we can have firsthand knowledge. We'll continue Cuba next week. Oh, you know what? Let me ask you very, very quickly as I'm planning. What do you want to do next year? What do you want to study next year? You have, so Lana asks, what are our options? Infinite options. Do you want to study history? Do you want to study theology? Do you want to keep, I mean, what do you want to, history? History? Okay, so Jewish history is divided into 4 periods: biblical, rabbinic, medieval, and modern. Do you want me just to start biblical and we'll just work our way through everything throughout the year? Yes? Done. So let it be written, so let it be done. Okay.
Boker Tov. In so many ways, we need these in our lives.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely.
I mean,
No,
it
I
is,
mean, this
Rosalie,
second,
it is the Torah.
it is, yeah, right. Yes, we do.
Are you going to talk about Eurovision? I think you should say something about Eurovision, because Rabbi Goodman did not. And it's like, have you heard the song?
I did, but I don't.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I mean, I think I'm gonna. Yeah, I'll say. Yeah. It's a kitschy
Anything
thing.
positive.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Yeah. Okay, if we can all.
Hello? Hello, I want to make an announcement. So if you can give me your attention. As you know, we talked about having a summer class, and we are. And so we're going to have a summer MID class, and it'll start on the 8th. And we'll, 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th, for 4th of July. So you'll get an announcement. I'll send it out, and it'll be free. You don't have to pay for it, which is nice. We have a benefactor, which is wonderful. And what else? We'll send out. What else? It'll be in the Deber Chapel, which is really beautiful. They remodeled it, and 10 o'clock in the morning, and it'll be an hour and a half because you'll have a break in between, and Rabbi Goodman is our teacher. So that's it for now. Just stay in touch. We'll be in touch.
So next, yeah, can I, if everyone could claim a seat. So I am going to, actually just before we begin, does everyone have a Chumash? Yeah? So actually, I just want to begin by just addressing something that Rosalie said, and then I'll speak about that for a second too. What a blessing that this program is being, and Rosalie, it's free of charge for the summer as well? Okay, so I'm just going to be very blunt. The first thing that I learned it was my first class at Washington University in St. Louis, my very first college class, and it was a class in macroeconomics. I don't even remember the class. Macroeconomics. And it's a little Jewish guy who was a professor at Greenberg, something like that. I can't remember his name. And he said to us, he didn't know it was our first class ever. He said to us, before we get started with the curriculum, I'm going to teach you the most important thing you're going to ever learn, both in college and beyond. And I thought at the time that that was a rather arrogant proclamation. However, now celebrating my 30th anniversary of graduation from college, I'd like to say that he was absolutely right. That what he taught something that was a timeless truth. He wrote it on the board, and I'm going to write it on the board for all of you, and then it's going to be related to Rosalie's comment. So this is what he wrote on the board freshman year of Wash U, which was the most important thing I learned in college, and perhaps. Well, he wrote. Now, I am one of the chronologically younger people here. I think that I would, but I've lived some life, and that is proven true. And I think that many of you are shaking your heads and smiling, so it's proven true. And it is true of synagogues as well. Ain't no such thing as a free lunch. So if this has been a free lunch for you, you should make a donation to Sisterhood. Okay? Sisterhood sponsors this program, and they solicited someone to give money to sponsor this program. And that person is given to this when they could have given to something else. Ain't no such thing as a free lunch. So if you are a benefactor of this, and if you are a beneficiary of this, if you want to be a benefactor of the program, let me know. We can make that happen as well. But if you're a beneficiary of this program and you have not yet had an opportunity, like if you've been here every week for a year and you have not yet had the opportunity to make a gift to Sisterhood, you really should. Okay? So if you think that that is a slight bit of a guilt trip, it is. That is absolutely a guilt trip. Again, we don't tell you how much to give. We are aware that everyone's economic circumstances are different. And therefore, but if you have not yet written a check to Sisterhood or the synagogue or made a donation, you really should. Okay. A question. Yeah, go ahead. Wonderful. So I just said to the people who didn't yet do it for whatever reason, life is busy, whatever, but I was actually having this conversation with a family member, like a family member of mine who lives out of town, and having a conversation. They found a wonderful temple, and they told me about this wonderful program that they're participating, and it's free. And I said, no, it's not. And they're like, what do you mean it is? They don't charge us anything to come. I said, well, it's not free. It's costing the temple, so you should make a donation. If you're enjoying it, then you need to make a donation. So most of your faces, you've been here every week. Ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Make a donation to Sisterhood, and it's just the right thing to do. Okay. Okay. We are going to continue with, last week we spoke about Noah, and we had a very robust conversation about Noah, and we kind of glossed over, because we all were familiar with the story, we glossed over kind of the details of the story. By the way, it's a famous story for biblical criticism, for those who want to show or illustrate the multiple sources within the Torah. You could easily see the seams of multiple sources being sewn together in the Noah story. For instance, are there 7 of each animal, which it says in one place, or a pair, which it says in another place? The text is contradictory, and it seems like there are different stories about Noah, which is not even a threat. In biblical narrative, repetition is not considered it's not considered a it's actually good technique, right? So in fact, the story that we're going to read today repeats itself 2 more times, which is a biblical patriarch passing off his wife as his sister in order to avoid getting killed. That is a story, or pimping out your wife to monarchs is maybe a better way of looking at the biblical genre. But it repeats 3 times, twice with Abraham and once with Isaac and Rebekah, that story. So it repeats and repeats. And what I think the text is going is, first of all, saying when something is repeated, it's important. And also the text is sewing together different slight variations of different traditions. And if you think about the Bible as an anthology of different perspectives of our people who, before email and before TV and radio, they used to not be in close communication with each other. Different stories and different narratives developed around the fire. And then when the Jewish people were coming back from exile from Babylonia, as a way of giving the Jewish people a nationalistic infusion of pride, they put together everything, which is the Torah. But in order to do that, they wanted to incorporate the different types of Jews that there were. There were northern Jews, there were southern Jews, there were priestly Jews, there were agrarian Jews. So the text and the different perspectives of the text reflect the different places of the Jewish community. I don't find that to be difficult, frankly. And I think I've said this in this class before, that I don't find the presence, if you ask some of our friends beyond the walls of Adat Ariel in Valley Village, you say, hey, multiple people wrote the Torah, they go into cardiac arrest and you have to call 911, right? But I don't find that to be a challenge. I actually find it to be one of the more beautiful things about our tradition. And what I mean by that is, some people say, Orthodox friends and colleagues of mine say, but if it's not from God, why do it? And I think actually, I don't know, I think it's a shallow way of looking at it. I'd say you do it because it's a way of us finding God. Telling stories, creating mitzvot, creating traditions, creating laws, creating ritual is a way of us finding God. So I don't think religious creativity is an affront to God. I think it is but then they say there's no divine revelation. Well, no, it's in human ingenuity and human creativity and human innovation. I think that pays tribute to God. And if you look at the Talmud, it's so important. We studied a little Talmud before to get at, to kind of fine tune what is right. So I don't find it slightly even problematic that this text, I don't think, is a reflection of from the top down. I think this text is a reflection of from the bottom up. And I think that this is easy, right? Like a theophany that goes from God down to us, that's easy. Of course, then you just do it and you don't ask questions. But to do this, that's different, and that's more difficult. Right? This is what I believe Judaism does. And this is what our Orthodox friends believe it does. It's different. I'm partial to my answer because, I think it's more. First of all, I think it's more flavorful. I think it's more inclusive. I think it's more creative. I think it's less. The more I live, also, the more I know that there's not one right answer, and so this allows for multiple truths. Anyway, so those are some thoughts about the Bible. Okay, and now to a very punctuation. Now a commercial break before we begin our Bible, which is Eurovision. Okay, so what's the deal with Eurovision? So so I've been asked by several people, like, oh, you're going to talk about Eurovision. Eurovision is like this kitschy European, like, festival to come up with, like, yeah, exactly. It's like American Idol of, so like in one way, who gives a damn? Like I don't know who won American Idol ever. So never mind. Like, is it still on? I don't even know. It's still, wow. It's Baruch Hashem, it just finished. Good. So if you were still watching American Idol, do something else with your time. How about this? If you are still watching American Idol, volunteer your time for sisterhood. Because it's time better spent than watching American Idol. Like, help Susie write the tribute cards. That's what you should do with your time. Don't watch American, or how about this? We'll make a compromise. If you watch American Idol, fill out cards while you're watching it. It does not demand your full attention. That I can assure you. Okay. So Eurovision is the European sort of, like, I guess it's American Idol, it's maybe a little, but it's like this kitschy, like, song contest, and it's over the top, and it's saccharine sweet, except when it's not saccharine sweet, and it's a way of vilifying Israel in front of the entire world. And, like, okay, newsflash, Europeans don't like Jews. Shocking. I mean, like, we've kind of, like, I got that email already, like, we've learned that lesson. So I don't know. I do admire this young Israeli man, and last year who said that when he was being booed on stage, he just thought that he was just singing to his country. And I thought that was the quote I read from him this morning. I thought that was quite beautiful. Like, here he is this young guy, he's an artist, and he's just, like, they're booing him. I mean, like, at Euro, like, can you imagine someone booing on American, except for that, what Simon guy? He's the guy who would boo, right? He was, like, the mean guy. So, like, but, like, imagine, like, booing American, I mean, it's just absurd. So it's just, I think the whole thing is stupid, but I think I know it's easy to catch. I think there are other things that we should be concerned about, like the Nick Kristof piece in the New York Times, for instance. Like, that is, like, if you know about Eurovision and don't know about that. So Nick Kristof writes a piece in the New York Times just last week talking about the rampant prison abuse in Israeli jails. Well, yeah, but it would be really nice if your source wasn't Hamas sympathizers. So I don't have a problem with Nick Kristof or anyone else writing an op-ed daring Israel to be better. I am sure that there are abuses in the Israeli jail system. If you think about it, how could there not be? After October 7th, the amount of terrorists, and they are terrorists, who are arrested and thrown in jail obviously increased. Then the country went to war, so the amount of people and the type of people who were guarding those prisoners changed, and probably not for the better. So the prisons became overcrowded, and the guards who were guarding them were less trained. So it doesn't take, like, a government specialist to figure out that bad things probably happened in Israeli jails. And then newsflash, bad things usually happen in jails. I was a chaplain. I spent one summer, they used to, downtown in the prison system in LA when I first came here. And I went every week with Rabbi Tzvi Dershowitz of blessed memory. And I remember once, I had to go around the prison with my own guard. Like this big, guy, was walking me around. And I had a list of people who wanted to see the rabbi. I'll tell you 2 stories. This is very tangential. This feels like a piece of Talmud. So the first is, this is the funny part, then I'll tell you the not so funny part, is that, so I have a list. I'm just going, cell by cell, block by block, and there are different kinds of blocks according to the crimes or your ethnicity. And anyone could ask for anybody, and you can't judge or, anyone's in. So they just have a list of people who ask to speak to the rabbi. So I'm going around, and I get to this one cell, and the guy's sleeping on his cot or whatever, big guy. And so the guard takes his stick and taps something and he goes, "Hey Ramirez, the rabbi is here to see you." And the guy just mumbles something. And then the guard goes, "Ramirez, wake up, the rabbi is here to see you." And then, he just grumbled. And the third time, this guard goes, "Ramirez, the rabbi is here. Do you have anything to say to the rabbi?" And Ramirez pops up and goes, "Yeah, tell the rabbi this." And then he extended his hand with a 1-finger salute to me. So I said to the guard, "I think that was what Ramirez wanted to say. We're good going on. We're okay." Then the next guy, there was another guy who was, we went to a very serious block where there was this guy who was there, who was being tried for murder. I mean, by the way, the jail system, jail is the temporary place. And so it is not a nice place to be. Anyway, so I go up to this guy, and this guy says, "Rabbi, can you pray with me?" And I said, "Sure." And so he held out his hand, and he's in solitary, I don't think it was solitary confinement. I didn't know what anything was, but he was alone in this little hole in the wall that didn't have any fresh air, it was disgusting. And so I held his hand and we prayed. And after we were done, the guard said, "Rabbi, you put me in a very bad position." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. What did I?" He said, "He could have torn your arm off. And I couldn't have done anything about it." That's what prison is like. And so, of course, there is abuse of prisoners in prison. And any accusation, back to the Christoph piece, of any accusation of a violation of human rights should be investigated. And if it is found that it is a systemic or anyone on an individual level should be held responsible, obviously, and prosecuted, obviously, and dismissed from duty, obviously. However, for Christoph, first of all, there were several things that he said. First of all, when does it, why is it acceptable for and I'm still a subscriber, sometimes I wonder why, for the New York Times, they lead with the assumption of the worst. They lead with that assumption. And then once in a while, they do a little research to back it up or not. And often it proves not. And so they cast these allegations, and their sources are beyond unreliable. you know, I think Deborah Lipstadt wrote about criticizing Nick Kristof's piece. It was sort of like, you know, asking, you know, the Nazi propagandists, you know, if the Einsatzgruppen was guilty of murder. I mean, like, come on. So, like, you're asking Hamas or Hamas sympathizers or organizations that have clear ties to Hamas what they think about the Israeli justice system, and you think you're going to, and that's enough for Nick Kristof to, like, isn't he like an award-winning, he's supposedly he's like the shining star of American journalism. Like, can't you do better than that? Can't you do better than that? Great, he should be humanistic in all of his writings, but if all of his writings have the same level of research or backed up by that shallow, then shame on him, and he's not a journalist anymore, he's a politician. And he shouldn't even be a politician, he's a liar. That's what he is. It's disgusting. And so shame on him. And it just begs the question of, like, what axe do you have to grind? And I thought, like, the only purpose was to shed light on truth. But when your only sources, and they went, you know, I listened to this Chaviv Retek Gor, who's an Israeli journalist, and he's no right-winger, by the way, and he goes through a list and says, like any high school newspaper would have demanded you look this up and that you hold yourself to a higher standard than this. And so how is it that this gets into the New York Times? And how is it that it just harmonizes with a trope that is repeated over and over and over again? So anyway, if we're going to get upset, I see your question, Nadia, in just 1 second. Like, if you want to get upset about, like, I don't care so much about, like, the anti-Semites in Europe booing the guy on stage, you know, for Eurovision. This is serious stuff. And this is the stuff that we should, I'm not, like, I hope the guy from Israel wins Eurovision. I was glad to see, I think he advanced, I don't know what, around, yeah? He's in the finals. How did he get to the finals? Who voted? Was it like a call-in or something? How does it work? It's a polling. Okay, so maybe some people don't hate the Jews then. That's good. Oh, all the Israelis, like, Israel probably, like, developed, like, an app to figure out how to, it's like when I was a kid and I used to want to vote for the All-Star game in baseball, I used to take, like, the stack of ballots and, like, so he... Good. Do you think Nick Kristof is going to write a piece about this? I don't think he is. Good. I'm glad to hear that. That's charming. But I want to get, like, my point. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add to it, which you haven't said yet. It's ending, the article ends with a story of dogs raping.
Oh, it's bullshit. I mean, come on. Like, right, dogs are trained. That's...
New York Times published an opinion which, like, seriously,
Yeah.
says that
They're training dogs to rape the prisoners. No, it's in the New York Times. They're training it's not just like a dog, but, like, they're training dogs to rape, to sexually assault the prisoners. It is farcical. I mean, and, like, right, so we're, like, how do you not get fired? How do you write, who doesn't get fired for that? Right, if you wrote that, and it should be, by the way, if you wrote that about, like, if you said, you know, the Mamdani administration did such a thing, oh, you know, fired. If you wrote that, you know, like, anyone like that, you know, I mean, it's just like there's such a double standard when it comes time for Israel, anything with Israel, and the world can endure it and just accept it as if it, and people believe it, right? People believe it, and we have, like, a real issue. I mean, we have a real issue. You know, look, and it's not only, look, you want to get, 'cause I don't actually feel the need to be balanced. I need to declare myself a political free agent is what I need to do. But, like, it is, you know, That gets me enraged. It gets me enraged. I don't know how many of you listened to Tucker Carlson get interviewed by the New York Times last week. Well, that was a real hoot. You know, like for him to say that he's naughty, and he's like, he dismisses it. He puts Nick Fuentes, I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's like this horseshoe of where the left meets the right. And they're, you know, screw both of them in my mind. Like, I'm sorry, like I have had enough of both of them. I have, like it's enough with both of them that, you know, Tucker Carlson, listen to this. Don't listen to it if you take heart medication. And I'm being serious, like I was enraged. I'm going off the rails. Oh, he's gone off the rails. He's gone off the rails, which makes me want to go off the rails. Because, like, where's common sense anymore? And it's hatred. So Tucker Carlson gets, because I bashed Nick Kristof, let me bash Tucker Carlson for a little bit. So he has this crazy Nick Fuentes guy. Do you know who Nick Fuentes is? I did not know. You know? He's a Nazi. He's like a proud Nazi. Like the difference between the Nazis of like, you know, your generation and even my generation and the Nazis of our kids' generation, they're not even ashamed. He calls himself a racist. He's not embarrassed to say this. So he calls himself a racist. He's on YouTube or Twitter or whatever, I don't even know. I didn't know who he was. My kids knew who he was. My kids really knew who he was. And goes, oh yeah, this is a bad guy. They see him all over social media. My kids don't read Nick Kristof in the New York Times. So, but they do know about Nick Fuentes. So then Nick Fuentes gets into like a, you know, like a right-wing nationalist beef with Tucker Carlson. So Tucker Carlson invites him onto his show, and I watched that interview. It was like he was rolling out the red carpet for this guy. So nice. Oh, tell me where you grew up and the story of your dad. And like, this is a guy who's a Nazi. He's a Nazi. Who gives a crap about his dad? Where did you grow up, Adolf Hitler? Like, tell me about your childhood. I mean, he's a Nazi. He had a schoolgirl crush on him. And he's like smiling and then so that's one thing. And he's giving this guy a platform like this guy has never had before. He gives him legitimization, you know, and you know, he has Ted Cruz on and he crucifies Tucker Carlson. Ted Cruz crucifies the guy. But then, hold on, this is my, I'm gonna go on my diatribe for today. And so he crucifies Ted Cruz, which is like, that's his right to do. But for the Nazi, he rolls out the red carpet. And so he rolls out the red carpet. So then the New York Times has an interview with him. What's her name? Lulu Garcia Navarro has an interview with him. And she takes him to task on it. And she says, like, you know, how do you do that? Like, how did this? And he's like, he dismisses it. He goes, oh, maybe I was naughty for interviewing Nick Fuentes. Naughty. Like he's like a schoolboy and he deserves like no ice cream and go to bed early. He gave a Nazi a platform. He legitimizes Jew hatred and racism and every other despicable ideology known to mankind. And he admits to being naughty. And then Tucker Carlson also, so he laughs at her essentially. He laughs it off. He's like, oh, I'm naughty. And then he has, and he just like throws it in there, like, you know, why is he broken with the president? Why is he broken with the president? Because the president has been led down an ill-informed role, and he's been coerced and you know, he's been led astray by, you know, Bibi Netanyahu. So it's the duplicitous Jew who's behind the scenes, manipulating everything, taking over the world. And so Donald Trump is so Tucker Carlson disavows Donald Trump and says, oh, Donald Trump, he used to be whatever, but I don't, believe in him anymore. Why? Because the Jew got to him. The Jew. So you're right, so Eurovision, I kind of laugh at Eurovision, but when Tucker Carlson is saying this to 75 million people, it gets me worried. And I'll be honest with you, and it really, yesterday I was in Sacramento, part of this Jewish California delegation. So we went to lobby the state lobbyists in California about all this legislation. And the legislation's good and it's nice and it's protect the Jews, protect everyone, more. There's some really important things that need to occur. That's good for the Jews and good for society. They had an interview with this woman. I can't remember her name, and I'm embarrassed to say I can't remember her name. She's the lieutenant governor of California. Greek. Her last name is Greek. No one knows the lieutenant. I'm not the only one. The lieutenant governor of California. Anyway, I had actually met her once before. She was lovely. She had us to her house. I was in part of a rabbinical delegation in Hungary, and she invited us. She was under the Obama administration. She was the ambassador to Hungary, and so she invited us there. She was a normal Democrat, just a normal, you don't have to like Democrats. You could like Democrats, I don't know, but she was a normal. Anyway, so she's being interviewed, and the first question that was asked, in the interview is it safe for Jews to live in California anymore? And 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, we would have thought that question was insane. That would have been, how you pass the microphone around in these conferences and you hope someone doesn't say something really profoundly stupid. 10 years ago, that would have been the profoundly stupid or insane thing that someone would have said. You'd be like, what is this? What a waste of time. We have the lieutenant governor. Let's hear what she has to say. No one blinked. Everyone wanted to know what she had to say. Kounalakis. By the way, she unequivocally and clearly stated Israel has a right to exist. Israel has a right to self-determination. Israel has a right to defend itself. Very clear, opening, boom, 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 right away. She didn't quote any Hamas news sources like Nick Kristof. But anyway, how have we gotten to this place? My God, what's happened to this? And I guess the thing that bothers me about Eurovision is, at least, when my grandfather left to Europe, he could come here, and he thought that there were, better places to be. It's no better there. I mean, this is crazy. We're in crazy world. Okay, we're in crazy world. Who wants to say something? I've talked you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
Okay, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, and then there's one more, I think. AOC. Well, no, she's on a Democrat. On the Republican side, they are being lambasted by all the other Republicans. I want you to know that most Republicans are very pro-Israel. I only can hear positive things about Israel from the rest of the Republicans. You're just not hearing it. And they condemn and lambast and are dismayed by Tucker Carlson and their lot.
So this is what I'll say, because I'm not, I just wanted to say this. Like, my first priority in life is not to the Democratic Party nor to the Republican Party, it's to the Jewish people. That is unequivocally. And so whoever you vote for is obviously your business, but I will say this. It is a mistake for us to dismiss, because the Democrats made the same mistake. The Democrats made the mistake of, like, the elected officials were all, like, they're all Zionists, and Bill Clinton, he's a Zionist, and Hillary Clinton, she was a Zionist, and so we just assumed, and then all of a sudden, like the conversation changed very, very quickly, and it's not the elected officials, it's the people. And then the people are the ones who put in the elected officials. So whoever's in Congress today, I mean, you're seeing it, you know, and I understand it's a constitutional issue about the president going to war. I understand that. I understand Congress voting, and, you know, that there's an argument there about the jurisdiction of the president to execute a war. But, you know, I do find it interesting. I wonder if the Congress would have been so quick to condemn, on both sides of the aisle, so quick to condemn if it wasn't a joint operation with Israel. Now, I think they would have. I do think that there are people in Congress who are Zionists and who think that the president overstepped his authority, and that's fine. They should call him to task. However, I'm just worried about, like, with any political party, I'm worried that, yeah, maybe, you know, Ted Cruz is lambasting Tucker Carlson. Great. No one, fine. Even every last one of them is. Tucker Carlson is the most listened to man in America. He is. People listen to him. Candace Owen, like, and then if you don't know, because I'm ignorant of this stuff, Candace Owen, who I take I listen to a clip, or Nick Fuentes, he's a moron. Well, he's actually not a moron, that's the problem. But you listen to a clip, millions and millions and millions of Americans are listening to this. They're influencing millions of Americans. And to think that that doesn't eventually have electoral results, look at New York City. All right, who wants to go next?
Sure.
Look at this, home delivery.
Okay. I guess you can hear me with the mic here. Okay. My thought about what you're saying is running to how I get my news and how I watch television. I generally watch the stations that I agree with. And, okay? And also regarding news, I listen to people mostly who I have some alignment with. And it's a business. I mean, Tucker Carlson is reaching out for an audience. This is how he makes his living. So I don't know, and I can understand getting out, you know, you not being a fan of that point of view would be outraged, and I'm outraged listening to it, and to what you had to say, and I'm thinking we all ought to be writing letters to, you know, his station or whatever. I've never watched him in my life. I mean, protesting this, although that might just increase his value that he gets. So I'm wondering, what is the point? I mean, they all want audiences, and they all appeal by what they're saying to the audience they can get.
So here's the issue. There's one thing that you said that's just wrong.
Okay.
Here's the wrong thing that you said. Watching television. Okay. No one does that anymore. No, I'm being serious. My kids don't watch television. Exactly. They take out these little heroin-esque devices, they attach it to their frontal lobe and download. So kids don't, even my generation, there is no thing. So Tucker Carlson, he's smart. He doesn't work for Fox News anymore. It's a Fox News. He told Rupert Murdoch, who he has not a nice word to say about Rupert Murdoch. He told Rupert Murdoch, sei gesund, right? And then he creates his own media company. And then he goes online. He doesn't need a network. There's no network anymore. He doesn't need to be on cable. No one has cable anymore. He just needs people with phones, and he makes a podcast, and he gets millions and millions and millions of people to listen to him. And YouTube, and this is where the problem is, I was just listening to an interview with the CEO of YouTube. Well, you know, there's clear legislation, like they're not held responsible unless we change the law. They're not held responsible for the content and opinions of the people who use their platform. So he could say pretty much anything, like it's free speech, and they're not taking responsibility for it. So the internet is a cesspool. And my kids, and I don't see this because I'm not on social media, and I'm not, like, I'm with you. I'm watching TV. I'm watching TV, right? Like I watch MASH reruns because it makes me happy. But I don't I don't know what else. But they don't know from that. They don't, and so it's a very complicated thing because he's monetizing it. And not only that, but he's an anti-Semite.
The scary part is how many people in this gigantic audience who wants to hear that stuff.
A lot. So while Candace Owens, I'm not sure which one, Owens, so while like most elected Republicans disavow her, she's still, it doesn't matter. What matters is there are millions of people who are listening to her, right? And so when you have millions of people, because in the millions of people who listen to her, then you wonder how New York can elect Mamdani. Like, it's the same thing on the opposite side. It's the same thing. You know, it's like, oh, so Israel doesn't have a right to exist, and all we do is like kill children. That's from the left. And then, from the right, it's, where a cabal of Jews who in secret are destroying America by, because the president's a Manchurian candidate, in our favor, in our pocket. He's under the Zionist conspiracy. I mean, it's sickening what's going on. Yeah.
You asked, how is this possible that people are listening? And actually, in the class where we read that book by Edward Said, it's very logical how it's happened, because the Arabs realized after trying to attack Israel militarily that they couldn't do it militarily, so they had to change insidiously the narrative that had been going on, and so they've indoctrinated all of the students from the 50s, 60s, and on with the professors and the money that's been coming in from Qatar and Saudi Arabia and whoever was funding universities, the professors. So they have a narrative that is not based on real truth. It's based on what they want people to believe. Just the same way Castro said, we might as well forget the older people. We have to indoctrinate the young people. And that's what has happened from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. They have been indoctrinated to slowly not have the morality or the think to say, wait, this doesn't sound right. I will say that the conversation that we've been having today is about this. Rabbi Goodman said before Kristallnacht, everybody was going, oh, it's going to get better. These are a bunch of crackpots. They don't know what they're talking about. And then Kristallnacht happened, and then everybody said, oh, crap, we need to get out of here. And I'm just going to remind you of that.
Yeah, I'm reading this book on the Bund, the socialist labor movement that started in Russia and then went to Poland, and after it got, but they thought that they, like when Hitler was elected, if these groups had made a coalition, they could have bounced Hitler. But they refused to work with each other and instead said, oh, we can handle this guy. He's a joke. He'll ascend to power. He'll flame out, and we'll be the next ones who rule. The communists thought that. The socialists thought that. So they refused to work together. So the communists and the socialists didn't work together, so the fascists rose to power. And then, how'd that work out? Not so well. So, by the way, if you want to hear more about the Bund and about issues of Jewish identity today, this is going to be my class on Shavuot, for the Tikkun Leil Shavuot, which is our evening program. I'm going to talk about how the socialist workers movement in Poland informs Jewish identity here in America today. It's next Thursday night, and it's all in the temple announcements, and there's free pierogies. But I guarantee you what I'm going to say is going to give you not free, because there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. You got to make a donation. So you make a donation of $3,000 and you'll get a pierogi. Maybe two. A little sour cream. Zissel, you wanted to say something? Oh, I'm sorry.
What we are talking about is an old disease, and it pervades the entire Western world. Sometimes flares like a flu epidemic, and sometimes comes down like flu epidemics, and it's called anti-Semitism. It's been around for several hundred years at least, and the United States, this bastion of freedom, and I really do mean that. I served with its flag for 4 years, so I do mean that. Also harbors a lot of latent anti-Semitism. So it's an old disease. No one has found a solution. All we can do is deal with it. And personally, the more active you are, the more vociferous you are defending it, the better it is. You do not sweep it under the rug. You can't. You have to fight it. And you know what happens? A fight is a fight. And unfortunately, anti-Semitism has been around for a long, long time. So we're fighting a very old enemy that was there before we were born, and it's going to be there after we're gone. But we have to do our duty today. So what I gotta say, what else is new?
So I'm going to take the privilege of the last comment, then I got to go. You're right, Zissel. And I wonder, though, if we're answering it all wrong. I really do. Like, how many times in the Western, like not even the Western world, but like how many times has the world told us, no thank you, right? So like I'm studying the Bund, and they get like kicked out of everywhere, they like get kicked out of Russia, then they get kicked out of the Ukraine, and they get like, kicked out of, and they get murdered in Poland, and then a few of them end up in New York, and and so here we are again, and I don't know, like how many times does like how many times before we have to, I'm at a dark place. I'll just be honest. Like you probably could feel that today. After being in Sacramento, it was like, oh, let's fight back with legislation. Let's make it illegal. And I don't want to belittle this because it's important work and it needs to be done. But like, part of me feels like, oh, let's make it, illegal for them to do bad things to us. And that's important. It is important. That's really important. And at the same time, part of me wants to say, pardon me for being crass, screw you. Like, just screw you. Like, I don't need, like, I don't want to be, you don't want me, I don't want you either, right? Like, that's where I'm feeling a little bit more Zionist these days than like, if I'm going to fight my battle. And believe me, I have my contentions with the Israeli government. And if there is, this or Ben Gvir that or Smotrich, like I'd rather fight against Jewish hate, Jewish racism, and know, like I don't know. I'm starting to think that's energy well spent as opposed to this where it's like you're right. It's the same over and over and over and over again. Like I never in a million years, never imagined that my rabbinate was going to be about this. Sure, you can ask. I don't know if you learned anything. You were my therapist today. That's what you are. Now I have to make a donation to you because there's ain't no such thing as a free lunch. No, it was. No, you missed no Bible. There was no Bible. There was no Bible. Although, here, I'll give you the Bible. Wait, no, I'm serious. And this is a quote. So, yeah, oh, a little bit of Bible. But here's the thing about the Bible. It's interesting. Hold on, there was one thing I want to show you. Or this is how I'd end the sermon. All of the families of the world will bless themselves by you. To Abraham. That's the promises. So I guess we're still waiting for that to happen. Right, I'm waiting for that Bible prophecy to come true. When I'd be happy for that one to be, we haven't, if they are doing that, the email has not yet been received. So anyway, have a wonderful day, everybody. that's it.